QuickBooks Pro 2021. Most common forms customized. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are on the desktop. We have the QuickBooks program here. We set up the test file last time. This is the test file, the QBW file. I'm going to double click on the test file, which will then open the program and the file within it. Here we are on the home page opening by default. If it doesn't open for you, you want to go to the company drop down and open up the home page. We also have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view drop down, selecting the open windows list. Now we're going to be thinking about creating templates for some of these standard forms that we would be creating through the accounting cycle. To consider those forms, the best place to be is here on the home page, so we can think through where those forms will lie in the accounting process for the vendor cycle, the accounts payable cycle, the customer cycle, and the employee cycle, and then think about what kind of customization might be necessary for different types of businesses. Now, when we think about the custom templates, you can then go to the lists of templates, and we'll do that shortly when we start to customize. That'll be under the lists drop down, and we're going to be spending time here with the templates. So lists and then templates. This is where the standard templates are housed. We currently have the invoice templates, a few different invoice templates, the statement templates, sales order, and payment receipt templates. So those obviously are going to be the ones that are kind of like the most common types of templates that we would be dealing with. Now, if I go back to the home page and just kind of think about these icons and which ones might have templates related to them, notice the bill is something that comes to us. So it's kind of an internal form. This is more of a data input form. We're not going to be providing the bill to like a vendor or anything like that. Therefore, the template is not very necessary. We just want this to look good for data input purposes. The pay bill is basically a check. And so there's not really going to be much formatting to the check unless we get the pre-printed checks that will be somewhat pre-formatted. So not a whole lot going on there. The estimate is something that we may set up a template for, because that's going to be something that we might provide externally. We might provide the estimate for the external use, and therefore that could be something that would be worthwhile making a template. The most common thing that people would think of when making a template would be the invoice. The invoice is something that, of course, is going to be a bill to the client. We're billing the client, or we're invoicing the client. It's an invoice to us. It's a bill to the client, the way QuickBooks basically sets it up. And because the client is receiving it, we're going to want to customize the invoice, make sure it looks nice for the customer receiving it. Now, then we have the receive payment. The receive payment means they're going to pay us off on the invoice, meaning traditionally we would think of getting a check in the mail and we'd record this in the receive payment. Now, normally you would think of as the receive payment as an internal form. It's something that we will then create internally to record the receipt of the payment, not something that will be going to the customer, and therefore there wasn't really much need for a template. But now in 2021, I believe they allow us to provide customization to the receive payment form, which can be nice because we can then customize it and give like a thank you letter or whatnot for the payment that has been received on the invoice we sent out in the past. So much less common to customize the receive payment section, but it can be useful, and we do have the option to do that at this point in time. Then we've got the create sales receipt. This is the receipt that we would give if we made a sale at the same point in time that the work was done. You're thinking like a cash register situation. You're in a store, someone comes up with the inventory, buys it at the cash register, or a restaurant, and you're giving them like a receipt. You're thinking like a receipt type of document at the cash register. Once again, this is something that we might provide to the customer in a similar way as the invoice, and therefore this is probably the number 2 item that we're most likely to be customizing here. Now, this is also something that we might customize if we're like a not-for-profit organization, because we might get donations, and we might want to call this like instead of a sales receipt, we might want to call it a donation form. So we could customize this to basically a donation type of form. So those are going to be some of the most common items that we will be customizing. And then down below, of course, we've got the employee information. And when we enter the employee information, that's typically going to be internal type of items as well. So when we think about the overall kind of flow activity that's happening on the homepage, we're talking about the things that will happen day to day, will happen typically multiple times a day or multiple times a week. We're focusing in typically on the customer's area, and we're looking in on those forms that are going to go to the customer so that we can put our logo on it and you know, try to make it look nice for them. The other forms are forms oftentimes for internal use, and therefore the need for customization is not as great. So number one, the invoice most likely to be customized. Number two, probably the create sales receipt. Number three, maybe the estimates form, depending on the industry if you're creating the estimates. And then number four, the receive payment, to give a nice little another check to the customer saying, hey, you know, you paid us for the invoice that's sent out. Thank you. One more touch there. So then if we once again go to the lists drop down and we go to the templates, this is in the open windows here, the templates, then this is where we can see some of those templates and we can start to do our customization from here.